Okay, gang, different location. I'm actually in my bedroom. So, we're sitting on the floor and I have no makeup on and all that good stuff, but it's fine. It's fine because I am here to talk to you guys today about the discontinuation of Dr. Seuss books, the restrictions placed on Disney movies that are classics but happen to be not so politically correct anymore, and all that good stuff. So if you guys like this video, please like the video, click the subscribe button, ring the bell to get notifications, and comment F for flourish below, and yeah, that's all the stuff that I need for you guys to do before we get started. So the whole deal with this is, so now we're banning, well, let me rephrase, because there's a lot of people that are going to get on my case for using the word ban. Basically what's going on is there were 6 books that were Dr. Seuss books, one of which I actually had as a kid. My parents have it and are now hiding it in their safe, and I will explain why. Basically, these 6 books had some caricatures and stereotypes of various racial groups that are now considered protected classes or whatnot. The Dr. Seuss Foundation decided they are going to discontinue the publication of those books and the printing of those books, basically. So now you can go on eBay and you can go on Amazon and you can go on all these different places and you can discover that people are trying to sell these books for, $2,500 a piece, in some cases even more. Hence, my parents are hiding their copy. So the follow-up story to that is now Disney is restricting movies, specifically Dumbo, Peter Pan, the Aristocats. I believe Lady and the Tramp was the 4th one, but I can't quite remember what the 4th one was. They're restricting those movies so that kids under 7 years old cannot watch them, which is ridiculous because those movies were literally made for 7-year-olds. Like this little angel right here. So basically, my whole deal about all of this is, why do you need to ban something? Why? I'm using the word ban because they're not technically banned. You could still get them, but they're being made harder to get and harder to access. And I find that a form of censorship and a form of banning something, basically making it so that people can't see or have it anymore. And I have a problem with this. I think that regardless of whether there's stereotypes or racially insensitive content in some of these things, I think that people should still have access to all of them. People should still be able to use these pieces of material as, learning content. You see something bad on TV as a kid, you're able to go to your parent and your parent can say, hey, well, you know what? That's actually not really appropriate nowadays anymore. It's still okay to watch on TV, but we don't act like that, in public anymore. It's considered not cool or not acceptable or whatever. I think that these materials should be used as learning experiences to be able to show children and adults, this is what we used to be like, this is what we used to consider acceptable. And then those parents and adults should be the ones to determine whether it's acceptable for their kids to watch or listen to or whatever, or read or what have you. And be able to determine, okay, I think it's okay for my 7-year-old to watch Dumbo or whatever, especially given that, in just using Dumbo as the example, when I was a kid, I watched Dumbo. I watched Dumbo when I was like 2. So definitely Disney would not approve of me having watched Dumbo in 1993 as a 2-year-old. However, I never picked up on any racial stereotypes in that movie. The racial stereotype that is complained about in that movie specifically is that the crows that sing When I See an Elephant Fly are voiced by Black actors, or I'm not even sure if they're voiced by Black actors as much as they're voiced by people pretending to be Black men. I would have to actually go research that to see if they actually got Black actors to voice those characters. And so you might think, well, what's the big deal? Which is exactly what I thought. I thought, oh, what's the big deal? Well, apparently the lead crow's name was Jim. So that's, problematic, to say the least. The crow's name is not actually mentioned in the movie at all. It was apparently mentioned in the script and maybe even in some literature outside of that, but it was never mentioned in the movie. And so especially as we get further and further away from that historical time period in which Jim Crow was prominent. Most people are going to forget and not even notice that that was a thing and just think, oh, it's a cartoon for kids, and the crows' voices sound like they might have been played by black men. So I guess that's my whole deal is, when I was a kid, I felt like we were moving away from racism and we were moving away from all of this kind of stuff. And now it's like there's a whole industry that makes money off of dividing people based on race. You see, Etsy now features black, store owners, and YouTube features black creators. And I'm just like, okay, what happened to, wanting integration and wanting everybody? Why can't we just feature creators and some of them happen to be black? Or why can't we just feature Etsy shop owners and some of them happen to be black? Why do we have to care what color they are? I don't care. When did the color of your skin ever come into play for me? Never. So I guess that's my issue, is nowadays there's an industry now that markets based off of race, and that really, really disturbs me. And just going back to the original topic of this video regarding censorship and the banning, I'm using that word loosely, okay? The banning of reading and media material. I just think that that material needs to still exist, and we need to still be able to look at it. Like, it's the reason why we have the concentration camps from World War II. Why do they still exist? Because we need to remember what happened. We need to remember how bad it was so that we can prevent it from happening again. We need to remember what happened during Jim Crow. We need to remember how, even Disney had some racist commentary and racist cartoons and whatnot, or stuff that maybe isn't that racist now, but used to be, and that we can now make new. And now that Jim Crow isn't a thing here, and it's not actually mentioned in Dumbo, we can actually just move on from it and say, yeah, that was a terrible part of our history. Let's learn from it and move on. That's kind of the point of this video here. I'm sure that somebody will be able to take it out of context and make it sound inappropriate, or, they're going to say, oh, you're a white woman, so you shouldn't, be able to talk about this. And like, well, that's actually racist to say that because I'm white, I can't have an opinion about a subject. So that, again, it goes back to the kind of racism industry that now exists and is really, really disgusting. So just to finalize this video, I wanted to talk about some of the books. I've actually been collecting books that I'm concerned. I'm either collecting books because I want them to be a part of my collection, or I'm concerned that they might get banned. So just going through the stack, I picked up The Merchant of Venice, probably one of the most anti-Semitic pieces of literature I've ever read in my life. However, it's a classic, William Shakespeare. And again, going back to you need to keep reading the material and keep reminding yourself, this is what things used to be like. This is what used to be considered acceptable at the time. And wow, I'm so glad that we're not like that now, I hope. Just going back to that whole spiel that I just gave, that's why I grabbed it. Because if anything is going to get banned by William Shakespeare, other than all of it, it's definitely going to be one of these copies. So Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice is one of them. I also picked up Jules Verne, Journey to the Center of the Earth. I'm not sure that there's anything in this book that would be considered problematic. However, it's one of the classics. And so that's kind of what I'm targeting right now with books that I'm trying to buy. I'm really trying to grab the classics that are almost a part of Western history and the literature of Western society. I really want to pick up as many of these types of books as I can. So I picked up that one. I'm also picking up a couple of these others that are more of children's books. These are actually my parents' books that they have, but these are children's history. Very nice, easy to read. Very dumbed down, obviously, but they talk about racism. This is about Jackie Robinson, and they don't talk about it in the way that it's talked about nowadays. It's talked about as racism is bad. We should integrate. There should be, color shouldn't be an object. It should be a non-issue, basically. And that's how it's talked about in this book, which is how I believe that it should be talked about, because to talk about it in any other way, in any kind of segregationist way, shall we say, would be racist, right? So, and then the other one I have here is the story of Benjamin Franklin, and a lot of the founding fathers often get dragged through the mud, and this is a much more positive spin, also again for children, on the life of Benjamin Franklin. And it also just kind of reminds you, this guy invented like literally everything that we use, and no one even like seems to talk about that anymore. So again, just history books that I'm afraid are getting lost in the fray. So like classic Western literature and history books, especially children's history books. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. I'm really either looking to make sure it's part of my collection, or I'm making sure my parents hang on to those things, or whatnot. If they end up deciding to get rid of those, then I will ask that they give them to me. I just find history books are just really, really important to hang on to. So I recommend grabbing those. Obviously, I'm grabbing some other things that I just want for my collection, just if you want to know. I'm not really worried about Anne of Green Gables being banned, but given that they took the Anne of Green Gables story and turned it into that show, Anne with an E, on Netflix, and completely butchered the story and turned it into social justice warrior Anne. There are some themes in Anne of Green Gables that feminists would find offensive, specifically the fact that Anne's lifelong goal is to get married and have children. And while that's not necessarily the lifelong goal of every woman on the planet, nor does it need to be, it's this character's goal. And it's detrimental to take that away from this character, because it takes away a huge element from her. And so I grabbed that book. I'm hoping to grab that entire collection before something terrible happens. And then just as a final little bonus, these books, again, children's books are very important, especially older ones, because they were not as heavily politicized the way they are now. So I am a huge horse lover, and these are two books that I read when I was a kid. Album of Horses and White Stallion of Lipizzah. These two horse books I read as a kid, and I loved them, and I just finally found them on Amazon, and I grabbed them. Again, not very heavily political, and very much written in kind of more of a reverent style of horses. And just because everything is so irreverent nowadays, and everything is so hypersexualized, there's sex in everything, especially in children's literature and children's content. It's disgusting. I'm trying to grab as much stuff as I can, and I highly recommend my audience do the same. So if you guys like this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell to get notifications, comment F for Flourish if you watched my WandaVision series, and I will talk to you guys on the next video.